Mysterons, sworn enemies of Earth, possessing the ability to recreate an exact likeness of an object or person. But first, they must destroy. Leading the fight, one man fate has made indestructible. His name, Captain Scarlet.
Francis Matthews was the voice of Captain Scarlet, he of the lantern jaw set against the darkest deeds.
They took us to the studio and showed us the puppets so that we knew what kind of a persona the puppet had. And of course, Scarlet was rather straightforwardly good-looking, dark-haired, blue-eyed, you know, firm-featured and kind of cultured. So I made him this Cary Grant type character who talks like that all the time. But I was at ATV a couple of years later, after the series had been to America, and Roger Moore was there. So he and I knew each other, and he met me in the studios, and he said, "Hey, that series you're doing," he said, "they've got Cary Grant's voice, you're doing the voice, and they've built the puppet to look like me." He thought it looked like him, Roger.
Ah, but James Bond was out on his own. Captain Scarlet has the faithful Captain Blue at his side. Holmes had his Watson, Victoria her Albert, Pearl his Dean, and now there's Scarlet and Blue. Ed Bishop, who played Blue to Francis Matthews Scarlet.
Captain Blue was wall-to-wall teeth, peaches and cream complexion, Mr. America, which is what I am.
Lower the undercarriage. SIG. No response. A stray bullet must have broken the electrical circuit when I shot through the lock.
Try it again.
It's no good.
We've no choice. I'm taking her down. Get everyone to the rear of the plane and you stay with them, Captain Blue.
But, Captain...
No, this is my job. Now get moving.
Spectrum Cloud Base to Geneva Control. This is an emergency. Flight 104 has an undercarriage malfunction. Stand by for crash landing. This is an emergency.
And the thing I liked of working with Gerry and Reg and the rest of the Century 21 productions was that there was nothing Mickey Mouse about it. Although it was puppets, you were brought in, you played one character and one character only, no matter how big or how small the part was. And B, everybody was on the same money. We got 15 guineas. I'll let you work that out yourself. And everybody was on the same money, so that made, there was no tensions that so-and-so was getting paid more than I was. The only tensions that existed were between our characters. We began to defend our characters. Well, Captain Blue wouldn't say that. You know, we find ourselves, then we have to say, hey, wait a minute, guys, these are just puppets. And what they did also is they would record us first. So if vocally we would do something brilliant, which might just happen with actors occasionally, they would make the puppet, by raising his eyebrows or twitching or whatever, accommodate that creative reading of the line, which was very good. So we never had to match the puppets. They were always made to match us.
Supermarionation was how Gerry Anderson described that. The actors' voices were recorded and the sound on the tape then converted into an electronic impulse which was wired into the heads of the puppets, so that when they spoke, their lips seemed to be synchronized with the actors' original voices. The more series that Anderson produced, the more he tried to cut the string that tied him to his puppets. Inside the Puppet Master was the man who would be a fully-fledged film director. The puppets in the Joe 90 series, the Wunderkind Joe himself, who can absorb electronically the most abstruse expertise the world has to offer, or his adopted father, Professor McLean, are intended to be lifelike. Gone for good are the mannequins or womankins of Thunderbirds and Stingray.
I think it was a terrible mistake. The more naturalistic they looked, the less interesting they were, and there was a corresponding blandness, a kind of blandness, both in scripts and in voice. And you ended up with something which was, instead of being a parody of human behavior, instead of being a parody of the science fiction film of the 50s, was something awfully close to being straight, and it was much more boring. The naturalism scaled the whole thing down.
By the end of the 1960s, Anderson had scaled the whole thing up. He was producing his first live-action series.
UFO resighted. Moon base red alert.
Interceptors, immediate launch.
UFO was the first of Anderson's fully live-action series, to be followed by The Protectors and Space 1999. In UFO, the dreams of the 60s are fading fast. Sunny optimism is soured by midnight doubt. Mankind is on the defensive against aliens from outer space. Still, Shadow is there with Ed Bishop as Commander Straker, their eyes peeled watching the skies for the invader.
Shadow stands for Supreme Headquarters Alien Defense Organization. And I'm going to say all this with a straight face. Its mission was to protect the world against a potential alien invasion through unidentified flying objects. They did exist. The secret organization knew about it. Secret organizations within all the governments of the world knew about it. We couldn't let the world know because there would have been widespread panic. And these guys are coming from across the eons of time and space to come to us because they're from a dying planet and they need the organs from our bodies to infuse their bodies to keep them alive. Get out!
Red alert. Interceptors, immediate launch.
The interceptor leader has visual contact. The UFO is lifting off.
Order the attack.
Take cover.
Andrew Rissick is less convinced by the series.
I think the problem when you get to the live-action stuff is that it just looks awfully run-of-the-mill. It doesn't have any of the invention and the scale. I mean, in puppets, you can blow up the Empire State Building. You can't do that in real life.
Do you feel that, perhaps like all really imaginative program makers for television, that in the end what has happened for Anderson is that television in general, across the whole world, but particularly in America and Britain, caught up with him?
I'm not sure. I think that's probably partly true. One of the things that fascinated me about these series was that I think they created, in a lot of people, a taste for something which you only otherwise satisfied through Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, or the Bond films. I think, too, that he inspired and interested so many people that, in the end, people started to do the same thing. He was ripped off by other people, I mean, for very good imaginative reasons, and he sort of got left behind. I think that probably has happened, but it's difficult to say because he didn't go on making programs, and if he had, he might have surprised us. I hope we'll see Space Police very soon.
The trouble is that Gerry Anderson can't find a television network who are prepared to buy what he hints is a kind of Hill Street Blues in space, despite the fact that he's already made a one-hour pilot for the series. It's true that his last series, Terrorhawks, with puppets not people, was more of a success with children than critics, but even off-form, Gerry Anderson's work fires the imagination more than that of his hordes of imitators on both sides of the Atlantic. And yet, if you believe Ed Bishop, the man who made all this possible, who invented TV science fiction, has never quite understood what he did.
He is a wonderful creator. I think personally he yearns to be creative himself. I think he would like to be a director. And I think at the time when we were working, he had that yearning, but he didn't realize that he had the most supreme creative gift was to get a lot of neurotic people together and make them create. The designers and the writers and the actors and the lighting photographer and all the rest, get all these guys together and preside over them and guide them along his predetermined track. And that is a gift. And to make it all come up, you know, throw all those cards up in the air and make them all come down in the right order is a fantastic gift. And Gerry's got this in hearts and spades.
All right, Matthew, into the case you go.